or ice, who maintains it so that it's safe for people to get, I mean, there's a whole list of questions.
That's a good point, and that's why I'm looking more towards having them located within the open space than therefore the maintenance then is formed by the homeowners association.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep working, give us something, Bruce. All right. The defined location of traffic issues was with the mailboxes?
Yes, that's
All
correct.
right. Elizabeth, you might as well start part 12, animals.
The city of Pittsburgh allows sheep and goats, as long as they're nanny goats, and chickens on an acre lot.
What age?
On an acre lot. I didn't bring it with me, but I have that ordinance. South Strabane Township, areas in Greene County are being faced with it. It's in the paper all the time. The cost of eggs is high, and people that are living in Cecil Township. One family had 9 acres, and they were rejected by our zoning hearing board to have 2 llamas. Yes, it's true. Absolutely. I think that we need to be a little more reasonable and a little more sensible. We're semi-rural or not, or whatever, but if the city of Pittsburgh can do it and other municipalities can do it, I think that the city of Pittsburgh does not permit roosters, and I can't say that I disagree with that. But they're allowed on these single lots or small lots for chickens.
Elizabeth, you mentioned, say, South Strabane and Greene County. You see they're facing this issue right now. Facing it in adopting an ordinance or?
Apparently in adopting an ordinance, and people are asking for it, or being cited and going in, filling the township buildings.
There was an article on Monocacy Hill, and they were, people were asked to take their chickens off their property. It's just people. I don't have a problem with it.
Well, we need an example of the ordinance, model ordinance.
Well, I have one for the city of Pittsburgh, and I don't have any others.
It'd be nice to be able to have a township that we have. Bruce, what do you?
Members of the board, last week I was doing research on it. I found quite a few ordinances around the state. One in State College, one in Shippensburg, and one we just got to meet this afternoon was from Peters Township.
From where?
From Peters Township.
Peters, they have an ordinance.
Yes, they do.
I think they allow a horse on 2 acres now.
The interesting thing about this is that I started to find that there's more to it than just allowing the chickens. You have to factor in the chicken feces, how to be disposed of, the location of the chicken coop, the size of it, setbacks. I mean, it's doable. But some of these ordinances I've seen that are like 6-7 pages long. Peters, of course, that was only 3 pages. So I think it is doable, but it's just not a matter of just allowing them on a certain acreage. I think that you have to take in all the health concerns as well.
Can you send it to us so we can?
Yes, I can. I can send you all the ones that I've received so far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on communication facilities, I mentioned a couple of things. Bruce and I got some ordinances from other surrounding municipalities, and most of the ones that I saw, and I have most of them are either 100% height of the tower like we have, or the highest one was 115%. Bethel Park is 110% of the proposed tower height. Cranberry Township, it's the largest of the minimum building setback of that applicable zone. So whatever the widest setback in a zone they have, that's their setback for a tower. And it says 100 feet from a residential property line and 50 feet from any adjacent property line, so the parameters is pretty easy. Moon Township is a distance equivalent to the height of the proposed tower. Another one, Murraysville, it's a minimum of 200 feet. Peters Township, it's equal to the height of the tower. Going for Marshall Township, it's 50%, not less than 50% of the height of the tower. In Swiftly, they're 115%. I think you told me 2 more, Bruce, that you saw that were roughly the 115%.
Yeah, Peters Township and Upper St. Clair
Or what?
are the same, identically the same as
What?
110%.
110%.
I think Peters is identified as, it's equal to the height of the tower. That's actually our similar ordinance.
Yeah, that's what I have in Peters too. Height of the tower. Right now, that's exactly what we have, but obviously it affects residents who are going to have that one put within a couple hundred feet of their property.
Upper St. Clair uses, they have an overlay district for their telecommunications facilities, but they don't have any towers. The only one tower they have is over off of Boyce Road. Most of their regulations are geared towards either on-building mounted facilities or light standards and things of that nature.
You said there was one at the high school by their football stadium on light towers.
Sprint put that in back in the very early 90s at Upper St. Clair football stadium. It was disguised as a light pole, actually, and it's still in existence today.
But we are not Upper St. Clair Township. Their build-out is, what percent is built out? 50%?
I'd say,
Pardon me?
I'd say
More than that?
Like 90%.
90%. So that's not anything that's comparable.
But at the same time, we can't, the idea is not to have huge cell phone towers everywhere in people's backyard.
I would feel safer at 1.5 times the height of the tower. If it was 1.5 times the height of the tower, the setback.
I don't think that's enough. I think it should be 500 feet.
But right now, 200 feet setback on any direction, you need a minimum of 4 acres to put a tower right now at 200 feet, if you measure from the center of the tower.
So,
Well, I'm just saying that it's, right now, in our zone, it's not permitted in R2, R3, R4, C2, C3, or BPD, or,
I1, I2.
it's a lot, I1, I2, R1, and C1. Those are the 4 zones that's allowed right now. And our R2 zones are considered, the higher density residential, but not R1. Most of our farms, or actually all of our farms are on R1, and I think that's where they came about. There are very few housing plans in R1 property, and there are individual homeowners, individual properties are all in R1, and all our farms are, so I think that's why you've got planted in R1. But I guess we can propose that 1.5 times the height of the tower.
I would even go more, Tom.
Go more. Definitely.
Or make it a tower that's in plain sight. We do that.
We have to give something to,
Who, me? Cindy?
Please speak up. Yes,
All of us.
yes.
Sorry, thank you.
Bruce, we're going to have to get together to write something up with those numbers on it, because for the next period, we have to actually have it ready to publish in the paper and to be able to give out to the residents. So if that's the intent of the board, let's write it up that way initially. I don't think we saw any other issues that came up from our meetings with our residents. I think we have 6 towers in the township already, and then it's just always the height or the setback with the nearest residents. It's always been an issue.
There are a few other things I've done some research on. Number one, we talked about the setback issues. There's a conflict in the 1212 versus the section in fencing in the other part of the ordinance.
We're going to change that to 8, to keep it in line with the current ordinance.
And then we had a pending application back in the summertime for a carrier that was going to locate on top of the building on South Street. We're probably going to be faced with a couple more of those. Now that's a conditional use process. I didn't know what the board's wishes were. If they still wanted to retain conditional use process for facilities located on buildings.
We could have it as a use by right with the specific criteria and standards attached to that particular use. That way they don't have to come every time for a hearing. They want to put something on a building, which we'd like to encourage. So I think a conditional use kind of discourages that. So if you want to think about that, about allowing, wanting it on a building or existing structure, then to consider use by right.
There's also something else in that's why a lot of communities have really recently revised their telecommunication ordinances. It's called DAS, D-A-S, and it is distributed antenna systems. And for the most part, there are smaller cell sites that actually are located in a high concentrated area such as business district, which at that point are located on top of light poles and things of that nature. Let me see if I can.
Do you have a picture of one?
I do. There's, if you notice on top of this telephone pole, there's a whip antenna. And there's a good example right there of what these are. There's a box connected to the telephone pole box, and then fiber optic cable feeds it, and then the antenna is attached to the top of it.
How tall is it?
They vary. The antennas vary based upon on the need. But the interesting thing about this is that because they're located in the right of way, most carriers have gotten approval from the PUC, and therefore they're considered an essential service and not subject to zoning regulations. Most communities you make one as a conditional use. Right now, the way our ordinance is structured, we would go that same route. However, we probably need to look at this, and if there's any additional conditions that we impose based upon that.
Yeah, it'll probably sure encourage them to be there instead of in people's backyards then.
Why haven't you considered that?
It wouldn't cost more money. It wouldn't work in that location. I mean, Verizon Wireless is co-located on multiple distributed antenna systems throughout the country. This is, as you noted, Ms. Calvin, a more rural community. And as you can see, there's a new development that's being proposed tonight. This tower would service that type of neighborhood.
Well, why couldn't the DOS antenna work?
The infrastructure doesn't exist.
What infrastructure?
The utility poles, light poles, would have to put in.
What does it cost to put up a utility pole?
There are a variety of challenges associated with that.
It costs more money than just having one single tower.
That's not exactly.
Sure.
I'm not going to get into a debate. A distributed antenna system wouldn't work in this situation.
The what?
It would not work. It's for more dense locations.
The other thing too, and the other professionals who probably attest to this, but these DAS systems are designed more also, like I said, in concentrated areas such as over in South Point, which I've had inquiries for. But what they do, they increase the intensity within a building, within a structure.